Welcome into Phoenix Breathwork, the podcast, Breathe to Rise. My name is Jessie and I'm your host. I'll be using this platform to share the power and magic of breathwork and to empower you to be able to transform your life as much as I have mine. I will share my experiences and will be inviting on some incredible guests to share their stories too. Look forward to guided breathwork practices and meditations to help you explore and build your own relationship with yourself and your breath. Get settled in and enjoy what's to come. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will ensure to keep creating more. I hope you are inspired in some way. Let's breathe to rise. Hi, and welcome into episode 1 of Phoenix Breathwork, the podcast, Breathe to Rise. I'm Jessie, your host, and in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you my journey with breath and my intention behind this podcast. So settle in, get yourself relaxed, and let's breathe to rise. So welcome in, everyone. I'm Jessie. I am your host of this podcast and the founder of Phoenix Breathwork. So my intention behind creating this podcast is, well, there's many levels, actually. It's been something that's been sitting in my heart for quite a while because breathwork has completely transformed my life. It's impacted me in so many ways, and I am so passionate about sharing it in every way I can to reach as many of you out there as possible so you too can experience what mastering your breath or just starting to build a relationship with your breath can do. Today, I'm going to share a bit about my journey and what's led me to this moment and some of the experiences that I've had so far. So, I'll just take a breath before I begin. What amazes me is that our breath is a gift that we've all got access to. And we literally carry it with us all the time, but we may not pay attention to it and notice our breath. And I'm certainly someone who never did. I used to work in the corporate field. I worked in HR and recruitment really for many years. I was based out in Australia for a long time and back in London here in the UK. And I loved what I did to the extent that I loved working with people and really passionate about helping people, achieve what they wanted to. So I've always said that the best part of that job for me was always when, the person got the job that they wanted or when your client was satisfied with the best hire that they could get. So that for me was where I used to get my joy from. But it was a very high pressure job. And in my last role, I was based in the UK, working in quite a senior position. And I just couldn't keep up with the pressures of the job. My role was growing and growing and growing. And I just didn't have the tools or the capacity to cope with the stress and the pressure I was under. When I did reach out and ask for help, that help wasn't available, budget or whatever the reasons were. So instead of pushing back, I just continued on because I thought that's what I'm supposed to do. It's my job. I have to get this done. And I was the one who was, replying to emails on my BlackBerry. This is how long ago it was. On my BlackBerry in bed at midnight and then, up and out and on the train into London at 7 a.m. or, getting into the office at that time and just burning the candle at both ends because the more I did this, the more it started to impact me negatively and I couldn't cope. I didn't have an outlet for the stress. I didn't know how to manage all of the overwhelm. So I started to turn to other coping mechanisms like having a drink after work to relax and, starting to make bad choices with food and sacrificing my exercise time, missing time with friends and loved ones. So actually my job started to have a really negative impact on me. And it wasn't necessarily my job. It was the pressure and the stress that was starting to have that impact. So I started to really feel the negative effect of all of this, and wasn't sleeping and was short and irritable, and it started to affect my performance at work as well. So it got to the point at the end of 2015 where I had to leave, and took some time out, because one good thing was that a job like this had afforded me to be able to take a bit of time out. And I thought, I don't want to rush into another job just for the sake of working. So I just took some time to decide what it was I wanted to do, and knew that I would love to go away for a little while. And I'll talk more about this at other points, but I had a pattern of almost running away when I went to university, the furthest away from home, and moved out to Australia. I can't get further away from London than that. And was very aware of that being a pattern, but decided I needed just to take a bit of time for myself and do something impactful, in the meantime. So I took on a project in Brazil, in Rio, which had been calling me. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but just somewhere's calling you and you have to go there. So I found a project working for a social enterprise company, and it was a 6-week project out in Rio. And I was like, right, I'm doing that. Packed up, went over for this 6-week project. And during that time, it was like I was able to breathe out for the first time and just start to just live life again, is the way I can describe it best, because I would start to do things that brought me joy, things I liked to do. And I was out in the sun and on the beach in the water every day. I'm a water sign. I don't know if that's why, but I love being in the water. And Rio is such a beautiful backdrop, and the people and the energy there, it was just what I needed to start to reset. And I realized at this time that one of my passions and one of the things that I love to do is work with people. And so I started to think about how I could do that as a career. And coaching had always been something that had interested me, because after I finished university, I started a coaching course with them. I think it was the Coaching Academy at the time. And I never completed the course because I decided to go out to Australia. So it wasn't meant for me at that time, but I was drawn back to it at this point, and researched a number of other coaching schools, and landed upon the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, IIN, and started to embark on that coaching journey, which was really transformative in itself. And I discovered some incredible teachers through that course. But whilst I did that, I wanted to connect with other coaches in my network. So I started to put the feelers out, can I meet someone? Can I talk to someone about how this works? How do you do this? And I was connected with someone who had just certified as a breathing coach. Now, this person was back in London at this point. So on my trip back to London just to visit, I connected with this breath coach, and they were about to run their first breathing class. So you can imagine, this is now 2016, and my curiosity has been sparked. What do you mean you're running a breathing class? Like, surely we're already breathing. But I was super interested and went along for this class. And for whatever reason it was, London traffic, or there was a race on or something, I was extremely late and missed the entire introduction. So I turned up just in time for the actual breathing session. Now, if any of you listening have ever practiced any conscious connected breath work, you'll know that it's an unusual way for us to breathe. It's not how we would normally breathe. And so it's good to have that introduction, the explanation in the background to it. But I'd missed that. So I rocked up, had a quick hello to the facilitator and check in, and then into the breathing we got. And it was a really incredible experience. Like, there was lots of things happening. I'll talk to you more about that as we go through, but it was just something in me was like, I don't know what's going on right now, but I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with it. I'm going to stay with it. And at the end of the session, we have a period of relaxation and integration, we call it. And At that point, I felt this deep sense of peace and stillness that I hadn't felt in so long, if at all. And I was like, whoa, I can feel like this just from breathing. Tell me more. Tell me more. Turns out the facilitator, it was a Brazilian connection that had put us in touch. And the facilitator was moving back to Brazil the same time as me. So I was like, brilliant, I'm going to keep breathing with you. And back in Rio, would go to these breathing classes. And every time I would have a different experience. I would start to connect with and release emotions. So like I would cry in one session, and I'd realize that I'd been holding on to different things that had happened in my past, and it was starting to allow me to feel lighter, feel clearer, and just have a bit more energy. And I could feel these small shifts happening. So the curious nature that I have and these experiences, I was like, right, tell me more. And that's when I intended the 6-day seminar. So 2 breathing sessions a day for 6 days, where you can really start to get into the breath quite deeply. Now, when I attended this, I just went with an open mind. I was like, tell me more about this incredible thing I'm doing that makes me feel this way. And I had no idea what to expect. And I had lots of powerful, powerful breakthroughs. But it was on the 4th day, I remember it very clearly. We'd had a water breathing session in the morning, because water breathing is included in this program because it helps us to almost integrate any traumas that we may have had during childbirth or when we were born. So it's incredibly cool. I might do a whole episode on what the seminar is about, because it's really, really powerful. But on this day, we'd had a water breathing in the morning, and it was just a normal session for me. I didn't have anything particularly come up for me. But in the afternoon, I accessed some deep, deep trauma that I had stored away from my teenage years. I started to release this from my body, and I was sobbing uncontrollably. And I couldn't believe that I was still carrying this with me. So when I was 16, we lost my father in quite a tragic accident. And as you can imagine, that was a life-changing moment, and, I guess shaped my life thereon to be a certain way. And at the time, I'd had certain therapies to help me cope with it, and, mostly counseling, talking therapies, and had accepted what had happened, but very much on a cognitive level. So in my mind had accepted, okay, this is what happened, almost like a tick box, understand it, move on with life. What I didn't realize until this moment in this breathwork seminar is that I had stored that away deep in my body. I had held on to those emotions. I had not processed my grief. Now, grief, I know, is a complex creature, and there are no rules when it comes to grief, but this was so raw and so real. I was like, oh, to let it go, to release that, and allow myself to feel and process that in another way was the most powerful experience that I could have had at that time. And at the end of the session, then during the integration, I was remembering my father, because the trauma was around releasing what had happened. And I was remembering him, in fond ways that I hadn't really allowed myself to for many years. And that, again, was because it was too painful. I just locked those memories away. And so when I was remembering him, it was beautiful. And all of a sudden, he's sitting next to me on a park bench, and he turns to me and says, "This is the start of your spiritual journey." And I was like, what? I came round after my session, and the first thing I said to my facilitator was, did I fall asleep? Because I wanted to dismiss what had happened, because I couldn't explain it. And I was like, what? She's like, no, you absolutely did not fall asleep. and shared what had happened. And she's like, well, that's what happened. And it was very real for me. And, it took me a moment to accept and realize that I had managed to connect with my dad in a way that I hadn't expected, and realize that I'd shut down that part of me as well, where I was completely turned away from my faith, religion, spirituality. Everything was shut down in me since I was 16 years old. So then in that moment, I was like, oh, well, I know now I have to share this. I have to share this with my mum and my siblings, was my first thought. And so that in that moment, I decided I'm going to train to be a facilitator and share this breath with, like I said, my family first, but whoever would like to breathe. So I went into this seminar just for my own curiosity, no intention at all to be a facilitator and breathwork teacher. But after that experience, I knew it's what I had to do. So continued my training then in Brazil, and I went to Mexico for training, and to the US for training, and the UK as well. And it's a very in-depth, thorough training program. And it took me 12 months. So within a year, I was then fully certified and back in the UK. I left Brazil soon before that. And based back in London, I have been then sharing this breathwork ever since. And I am so blessed to be able to do this for a living and love what I do, but just to be able to share something as accessible as our breath to change everyone's life is just, there are no words. I'm just humbled and grateful every time I get to do this and share this. And so one of the reasons I wanted to start this podcast is because, yes, I've shared with you some experiences I had, and the powerful experience I had that led me to embark on the training program. But that's not where it ends. That's where it started. Because from there, I would start to peel back the layers. There was something else that would come up. There was some other belief that was under there. There was, it's like reprogramming, unlocking everything that I'd stored away for almost an entire lifetime. And just from being connected to my breath, from breathing in this conscious way, from feeling my feelings, for showing up for myself, for doing the work, this has allowed me to completely transform my life. At the end of that seminar, I can only describe it as though I had almost dropped back into my body, and I had shed so much that I was carrying. And there was a lot of guilt, a lot of anger, a lot of shame, all those really heavy emotions that we are maybe too afraid to feel, or maybe too ashamed to feel, because we're told that, we shouldn't feel anger, it's a bad emotion, or, anything that we're told or experienced over the years, whatever our belief is, it's a lot to carry around. So once I was able to let that go, I, connected with myself. I felt grounded and clear and focused. And this is where I was like, okay, let's go now. And I started to just almost flower and blossom and open up to life again and start to really embrace life. And from here on my journey, I started to connect with my spirituality again, and opened up to a number of things, tapped into my intuition, the greatest gift that we've got. And it's just been a journey where I've gone from, strength to strength to strength, but it's not been easy. I want to say that, because everyone's like, oh, wow, you live this great life and you're so calm and you say this and da da da. And I'm like, yeah, thank you. But it's taken work. I've had to reprogram a lot of beliefs I had. I've had to let go of things I was carrying. I've had to work through emotional blocks and healing and grief and all of that stuff. And it's a daily practice. That's what it is. It's a daily practice, because you can clear out what you've been carrying. You can process things that have happened in the past. But the thing is, life is still happening. Life is still happening. So working with our breath is like working with any muscle in our body. You know that saying, you don't use it, you lose it. It's the same with our breath. If you don't continually practice working with your breath, there's a chance it may start to return to its old pattern, or you might start to form new negative patterns, because life is here to help us to grow, and it can challenge us sometimes. So we have to be able to work through those challenges and overcome them in the best way we can. And it is an absolute roller coaster, isn't it? So I know that there's people out there listening who can relate to things I'm saying, because that is life. That is what we're here to experience. And it's, you know, us making a choice as to how and when we deal with it. And for me, it's the breath that has been the gateway to unlocking all of my magic and my potential, and allow me to show up in the world as my whole self, my true self, and help to empower you to do the same, because that is my mission. I want everyone to be able to know that they can have access to this, to know that they can just show up as themselves in the world and forgive and love, and, you know, tap into that joy, because we are supposed to enjoy this life as well. You know, we're here to celebrate, to live, to enjoy, and the breath has gifted that to me. And this is one of the reasons I'm so passionate to share that. I say often that, you know, I used to be that person that would very much react to things in a very explosive way, maybe, shall we say, when, you know, it's that pressure cooker effect, when things have been building up and then the smallest thing would happen and I would be like, oh my God, the world is going to end. How has this happened? What are we going to do? And and it would just escalate from there. And all the energy I would put into that, and it's almost like the chaos I could create in that moment was just on reflection. It's crazy, but when you're in it, you're in it, and it's real, and it's like, oh my gosh. But working with the breath and doing everything that I have has really allowed me to be able to respond to things now in a different way. So if the same situation that may have caused that reaction for me before was to present itself now, it's more likely that I would be like, huh, okay, that's interesting. What do we do about that? Because the other thing is, I realize what is actually in my control and what is not. What am I going to give my energy to and what am I not? Because if it's not in my control, why am I going to spend time and energy putting, you know, trying to control something that I know is, I can't? You know, classic example, the weather. I'm looking out the window and it's absolutely pouring down with rain. There is no one who could stop that. So why would you worry about what the weather's going to do? Even if you have prepared an outdoor event or something, you prepare, you know, okay, we'll get a marquee. Okay, we'll do that, but we can't control whether it's going to rain. So this is really where the breath has started to support me, and it has continued to support me every day in every way, actually. During lockdown, I was going through some of the biggest challenges I've ever had to, and I will share more about that at some point. But if it wasn't for my breathwork practices, and when I say practices, there's many other things I've learned along the way, which has stemmed from the breathwork, and there's other tools and techniques and stuff I include in my practice. If it wasn't for those and my breath, then there's every chance that I would have resorted back to my self-sabotaging habits. Oh my God, this is too much. I'm too stressed. I'm going to have a drink to relax, or, you know, get worked up and stressed and take it out on other people and just not look after myself in the way that I need to be strong enough to move through things and see things in a different way, and how I can control things and how I can't control things. And actually, that's what it was that was able to allow me to launch myself to the next chapter of my life, and being able to launch Phoenix Breathwork, which is what I did in lockdown, and see that go from strength to strength, and move my business online and start to build online courses and build an online community, and really show up and serve the best I could, because I knew I had access to something people needed: the breath. Taking a lot of deep breaths through this, because this is the first time I've really spoken about this in this way, and also being the first episode of this podcast, I'm a bit curious to how it's coming out, because I don't plan or script these. I trust what comes out is what needs to be said at this time, what needs to be shared. So I thank you for listening. But that's what's led me here to this moment, to create this podcast, to share with you the power of the breath. And one thing is, this is how it's helped me. But there are so many people I know that have had similar powerful experiences, but it's helped them in almost very different ways, because each one of us are on a very unique journey. And I really believe that the breath finds you when you're ready. So, I think when I talk back to the time my father passed away and I had access to these talking therapies and other things I was trying, if I'd tried breathwork back then, I'm not sure it would have had the same effect, or I would have been ready to connect with it. I had to get to the point I did. And when I found breathwork, that's when I was like, yeah, this is for me. So just trust and be open. The fact you're here and listening to this is a sign that either maybe you've tried breathwork already. Let me know. Because now, since 2020, the breathwork movement, shall we call it, has really taken off. Like, everyone is, well, I say everyone in my field, in my circles, but more and more people are exploring breathwork, are getting curious about breathwork. And I really feel strongly that, we are living in a world where we are so overstimulated and we are switched on all of the time. We are literally, if anyone's got a smartphone, which most of us do, I don't actually know anyone that doesn't, then we're literally accessible 24/7. And when that's attached to your hand, you are switched on and, connected to the outside world. And we find it hard to disconnect from that and find connection, like real connection with each other and ourselves. And I think now's the time that we're starting to reconnect and explore that connection and realize that actually we don't need to look outside or externally for that. We need to look back within. So it's about going on that journey within. And if you are brave enough, if you are ready, because it takes courage. It really does. It takes courage. It's, powerful work. And it is called work because when we start on our healing journey, when we start to embark on this change, we have to be able to be ready to feel maybe things that we've locked away that we couldn't feel at the time, or, we didn't have space to feel, or it was too overwhelming. Whatever the reason is, we have to be brave enough to feel that and move through it and release it. And that's where we can get the real change. So I am so excited to be here, and I'll be sharing more about my journey and specific different experiences that I've had and learnings I've had along the way, and tools I've picked up, and things that work for me and things that didn't work for me, because there's some stuff that I didn't connect with. And I'll be getting on some beautiful speakers who I know have got incredible stories to share with you too. So thank you for listening today. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting in me. And if you are curious, come and talk to us. Check out Phoenix Breathwork. We've got lots of online stuff. Come to a class, connect with us. There's a community here. If you're ready to explore, we'll meet you where you are. So if you're a beginner, if you've done some breath work, if you've never done breath work, if you've done different modalities of breath work, we will meet you where you are. Come on in, come and connect. And thank you for listening. I hope you've been inspired. Let's continue to breathe to rise. Thank you for listening today. If anything resonated, then let us know below. And if you've enjoyed what you've heard, then please remember to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep reaching more people to spread the endless benefits and transformations we can experience through breathwork. I'll see you in the next episode.